everyone, welcome back to another video from me, Amy from Polyreader. Today I am going to do a May wrap-up. So May was a great reading month. I read so many things in May that blew me away that I feel like have become lifelong favorites. I know it's hard to say that so soon, but I really loved a lot of the things that I read in May, and I feel like I'm on a streak at the moment. I'm on a reading streak. Everything I'm reading lately is either a 4 or 5 star in my opinion, which I've tried to be a bit more diligent with rating things what they really deserve these days. And I've been DNFing a lot of the books that I'm just not enjoying. So I think what's happening now is I don't really rate anything 1 or 2 stars anymore because I'm not finishing them. I'm just going, no, I'm putting you down out of my life because you're wasting my time. And that's nothing necessarily against the writer or the book itself. It's just not my type of book. And there's no point wasting your life reading those things. I've really come to that conclusion now. Life is so short. I mean, there's so many scary things that have been going on in the world, especially down here in Melbourne. And it really wakes you up to... I could get into a whole thing here because it's quite an enormous topic, but I guess the message that I'm connecting to what I'm talking about now is life is so goddamn short. Why would you be wasting time reading things that you're not enjoying? I mean, we could all die at any moment. If you think about that, the book that you're reading now, if you're not enjoying it, put it down. Put it down. Read something else. Pick something that you like. Reread something that you love. It's better than reading something that you're not enjoying, in my opinion. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is get through my reads of May. I've already written reviews of these on my blog, but some of you may not like the blog or would prefer to watch in video form, so I'll just do a quick little wrap up here. A lot of these books I have given away since reading them because I loved them so much. I wanted other people to read them, which you'll find is quite a common occurrence for me. So book number 1 is Agatha, Raisin and the Quiche of Death. I found this through Simon's channel, Simon from Savage Reads. Everybody knows Simon these days, so I don't need to introduce him. This was definitely one of the most comfy, cozy reads I've had in a while. It was like, I think in the blog I related it to a mug of tea, like curling up on the couch with a hot mug of tea. That's what it felt like to read this book. That's kind of the vibe it gave me. It was so snuggly and cozy and warm, and even though it's kind of a mystery, it was just so lovely. And the world of Agatha Raisin is something that I really want to revisit. I've heard the others aren't as good as number 1, but you know, I don't expect 5-star reads from them. I gave this one 4. I assume a lot of the others will probably be 3 or 2 stars because series tend to do that in my opinion. Oh look, the light's coming back up. It's set in a quaint little town in the Cotswolds. It's such a beautiful setting, you know, it's so descriptive, and she's really put you in that little town when you're reading the book, which I love. Agatha Raisin's a strange character. You sort of love-hate her, but you can understand why she feels the way she does and why she acts the way she does, as she's got quite a lonely life. So she decides to retire and move to the Cotswolds and have this private, you know, end of life, I suppose you'd call it. And something happens quite early on which she decides to investigate. Becomes Detective Agatha, although she's not legally a detective or anything. There's quite an exploration of loneliness and isolation in this book, which I really appreciated, especially for a woman who is unmarried and living alone and working really hard, and then decides to retire, and it kind of shows you existential dread of existence. Might be a bit deep for Agatha Raisin, but I think that it kind of touches on that subject and how tough it is to survive in this world alone. But it also is quite a funny book. You know, she writes in a really affable way. MC Beaton, she's a genius, really. I actually loaned that book to my mum because as soon as I read it, I thought, oh my God, this is like the perfect book for my mum. She's the reason I got into crime series and murder mysteries when I was young. I remember her watching them all the time and reading them. So yeah, I gave it to her and hopefully she loves it too. Second book I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite books ever now. And as I mentioned to someone earlier, this book is so brutal. If someone had have told me what was in this book, I wouldn't have read it. I just would have decided it was too gruesome for me and never kind of attempted it. But that book is The Natural Way of Things, which is a Stella Prize winner of 2016, I believe, by Charlotte Wood. It was just such a phenomenal book. Australian writers, again, Australian female writers are killing it. So basically the narrative of this book follows two young women who have just awoken to discover that they've been abducted. They kind of remember a little bit about what happened beforehand, but basically most of it's kind of a blur, and they're not sure where they are or why they're there or who they're with, or, you know, it's all quite, it's similar to The Handmaid's Tale in a way, I guess, but also not that similar. Just the fact that they are women and the fact that they have been abducted to a degree, I guess. They find themselves in the Australian bush, and basically what happens from here on out is best described as brutal and primal, and here I go again with the word raw, because it is. It delves into our human instincts and survival skills. I really like the message of women binding together, because that's something that's very dear to my heart. Each character in the story goes through quite an inner journey, specifically the two main characters that this book kind of revolves around, and they kind of relive the things that they believe brought them to this place, and they sort of blame themselves, which is a reflection of what's happening in today's society with women as well. Victim blaming kind of thing. So yeah, I found this to be quite an important book. It was written beautifully. Every sentence is just, you want to gobble it up. It's amazing. Even the most soul-destroying, gruesome things that happen in this book are written so eloquently, and I just love that dichotomy, and I really appreciate a good writer who can, you know, express those things. So 5 stars for me, this one. Absolutely loved it. One of the best things I've read this year. The next book is another 5-star read from me. I feel like I'm giving 5 stars out left, right and center, but these two really deserved it. And this one is The Love of a Bad Man by Laura Elizabeth Woollett. This is a library book, which is why there's a barcode and it's a bit reflective. So this is short stories. As I mentioned in my last video, Bree Lee, who wrote Eggshell Skull, which is one of my anticipated reads, has actually, I believe these two, Laura Elizabeth Woollett and Bree Lee, wrote together. Not together, but they were at the same place together when they were writing these books, which I found really cool. And I love hearing about things like that, like how writers sort of, where they wrote and how they wrote and what was happening around them. I don't know, I'm just really interested in that kind of stuff. So anyway, off topic. This is a collection of short stories. Each short story is based on history. So all the bad men throughout history. Not all the bad men, a lot of bad men throughout history. The first story is about Bonnie and Clyde. Not actually about Bonnie and Clyde, but about, excuse me, but about Clyde's brother and his partner. So that's the couple that the first story is based on. And my God, she writes so bloody well. That first story blew me away. I was like, holy moly, I've never even considered the perspective of this woman. But also, you know, you just don't really, as a society, I think we're conditioned not to think of the perspective of the women in these situations, because the men are the ones who are being sort of not praised, because obviously, I don't know, even criminals, I feel like a lot of criminals from history, like Bonnie and Clyde, are sort of popular, you know, like it's popular culture now. Anyway, I'm off topic here again, but I digress, I apologize. This collection is amazing. Each story is about something from history, and I think that writing from the perspective of the women is so genius. I was like, you know, I saw some reviews on Goodreads with people saying that it was ridiculous that she wrote from the perspective of these women, because how is she to know that the women were any better than their partners? But she doesn't know that. It's fiction. She's making it up. And I think that she's exploring this idea that could be completely irrelevant. But it doesn't matter, because she's writing fiction and it's genius. And I love thinking that this is the perspective of these women and this is what they were experiencing and feeling. And I love how well she gets into every single different character in every single story and creates a whole new world and a whole new perspective, and none of them feel similar to one another. And I just think that proves that this is an amazing writer, and I think she's going to go really far. I mentioned in my blog post that it's similar to actors. You know, when you see an actor that is so good at taking on a character, you forget that they're an actor. They step into this role and become this character so wholly that you don't think, oh, I'm trying to think of an actor's name. I don't want to say an actor that's not very good at this and get it all wrong, but you know where I'm going with this. You know what I mean. This is what I relate this writing to. So she's a great writer. She can step into each character very well and, you know, puts you in the picture with them. 5 stars. Please get a hold of this if you can. It's such a good book, and I haven't heard enough about it out there on BookTube or the Booktonet. The next book I'm going to talk about, I don't have with me. It is called I Am by Maggie O'Farrell, referencing Sylvia Plath. This is a short non-fiction / a memoir. So I listened to this on audiobook, narrated by the author, and it was so beautiful. 17 Brushes with Death is what it's called. So 17 experiences of death in her life, and each story has quite a different tone, shares quite a different experience. It's quite emotionally intense, this collection. Each story lingers long after you've listened to it or read it. If I stopped listening after a story and went on with my day and did something else in between, it just would linger in the back of my head, like it wouldn't go away, and the feeling that she conjured up would sustain for a while, you know. So it really got me, and I think I could relate to a lot of the stories, which always helps you to love and connect with something. And her writing style is so beautiful. I really am looking forward to reading some of her fiction, because if she can write like that with non-fiction, I wouldn't be surprised if she was incredible at fiction. If you've read any Maggie O'Farrell, please let me know down below, or if you can recommend any specific books of hers that you think I would enjoy, pop them below. Another read from May is Helen Garner's Stories. This is a book I got for Christmas last year. I was hanging to read this, but put it off for some reason. I think I was sort of working my way up to it because I just cherish her stories so much. I will definitely read this collection. It's beautiful, it's short. I've spoken about this book in another video before. This one's signed by the author, which is always very heartwarming and exciting. That was a nice experience. I've made a whole video about that. I'm not going to go into it again. I gave this collection 4 out of 5. I usually rate Garner's books 5 out of 5. This one was beautiful, but some I loved more than others. She's just an amazing writer. You should know that. I already think that anyway. That's going to be my opinion pretty much no matter what she writes. She's one of the few people who can make me laugh, make me cry, and make me, as I've said before, ponder the existence of life. Because she really does a good job of that. She just takes life in and it flows out through her pen. She just takes it in with her brain and her eyes, and it just falls out of her with a pen. And she puts it down on paper for other people to read. And I love that. I love that sort of truth, you know. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. This is how I'm acting. I'm not going to be... Maybe she alters it a little bit. Maybe she exaggerates it a little bit. But it's always just so beautiful and relatable. So I highly recommend this. If you've never read Garner, I'm doing a short video soon about where to start with Helen Garner, because I know a lot of people are not sure. There's so many books options out there, and they want to make sure they pick the right thing for them. So it's always a good idea to start with her short stories if you do like fiction or non-fiction. This one is fiction. Because, you know, it just gives you a snippet into her writing style and how different she can write between each story. But yeah, this was a great book. Highly recommend it. The last book I read in May is Tracey Emin's Strangeland. And I'm not going to review this one here because I am going to do it in my 3 rereads wrap up. And I also read Meena Kandasamy's, Kandasamy, I say Amy because that's my name, Meena Kandasamy's When I Hit You, which was just such an eye-opening, important book, and you should all know about that. It was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction in the UK. So yeah, so When I Hit You is about a young Indian woman who falls in love with a uni professor shortly after she agrees to marry him. So, and then they sort of have this really intense romantic phase, but slowly she begins to see, slowly we as the reader, begin to see his oppression of her. But it's so gradual that it sort of explains how simple it is to find yourself in a domestic or an abusive relationship, and how quickly things can escalate without you realizing what's happening. And I think that's why a lot of people need to read this book, because it opens your mind to things that you just haven't realized before. There's so much victim blaming. There's so many, oh, but she should have left him, and why would you stay with someone that treats you like that, and oh, she must love being treated like that. And it's just awful to hear people say those things, because these people have never experienced this before, and it's victim blaming. And this book does such a wonderful job of explaining to people who have no experience with this type of thing, how easy it is to find yourself in these situations, and how difficult it is to get out of them once you're in them, because slowly and slowly you're cut off from reality, and you're cut off from people who can help, and you're scared to talk to people because you know that this abuser is stronger than you mentally, or they make you feel like they're stronger than you mentally, and you know they're stronger than you physically. So I just loved this book. It was really emotional. I think a lot of people on BookTube have said the same thing. It's quite difficult to talk about because you just need to read it yourself, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. But I think you should definitely get a hold of it if you can. Get a hold of any of these books if you can, especially these two here, Natural Way of Things and Love of a Bad Man. They are both brilliant Australian female writers. So that's all from me today. Thanks so much again for watching. Like I said before in my last video, if you like what you see, please subscribe down below. It helps me out a lot. I will be back soon with my mid-year favorites wrap up, which I'm really looking forward to, because like I said, this is probably the best reading year I've had ever, which makes me nervous for the rest of the year, because I hope I haven't, smashed out all the good ones now and then I sort of have a bad experience. But no, I've got some good stuff to look forward to. So I think we're pretty sweet. But yeah, thanks for watching again, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.